January 14, 2026, 3:05 p.m., off the coast of Tobruk, Libya. A Ukrainian F-16 pilot call sign Ghost 1 is pulling a violent 9G barrel roll while a Russian Su-30 Locktone screams a death sentence in his ears. Below him, a modified Mech-54 torpedo is cutting through the Mediterranean at 40 knots, locked onto the belly of a Russian Kilo-class submarine. One wrong move and Ukraine loses its most precious air asset. One direct hit and they ignite a $400 million chain reaction that erases Putin's new Shadow Fleet HQ from the map, the error margin 0. The time remaining 15 seconds. This surgical nightmare actually began 1,500 miles away with a single satellite ping. To understand how Ghost 1 ended up in a 9G dance with death over the Mediterranean, we have to look at the apex predator of maritime surveillance. It's early January and a U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon is cruising at 30,000 feet. Its magnetic anomaly detector just registered a massive ping, a silent chunk of Russian steel hiding 20 meters under the surface. This wasn't a random patrol. The P-8 was tracking a specific group of shadows moving toward Tobruk, Libya. At the center of this formation sat the Volga Shadow, a massive tanker that had been repurposed into Putin's new HQ for the Shadow Fleet. Moscow realized that their Black Sea ports were becoming nothing more than expensive parking lots for Ukrainian drones, so it tried a bold pivot. They moved their strategic command to North Africa, believing the 1,500-mile distance would act as a natural shield. The logic was simple. If you control the tankers in Libya, you control the oil check that funds the entire war machine. To protect this mobile heart, Russia didn't just send a few sailors. They deployed a triple-layered defense. First, an IL-38N Sea Dragon maritime patrol plane scanning for surface threats. Second, the Shield, a corvette equipped with the Panzer M system, a rapid-fire missile turret designed to swat swarm drones out of the air like annoying flies. And finally, the Silent Hunter, an improved Kilo-class submarine lurking below using its MGK-400 sonar suite to listen for any underwater approach. On paper, it was a maritime fortress. However, the Kremlin made a fatal error. They assumed Ukraine would play by the old rules of naval warfare, ships against ships. Ironically, the SBU and Ukrainian Air Force were already finalizing a plan that treated this $400 million fleet not as a threat, but as a technical problem waiting for a creative solution. They knew that to hit the heart, the Volga Shadow, they first had to blind the dragon and deafen the assassin. If you were the commander of this mission facing a sub that can hear a pin drop and a corvette that can fire 48 missiles in a single burst, how would you even get close? Most generals would call this an impossible mission, but for Ukraine it was just the ultimate Ghost Drift setup. To hit Volga Shadow, Ukraine has to peel back 3 layers of a defense onion. The outermost layer, the IL-38N Sea Dragon, a maritime patrol plane that acts as the fleet's eye in the sky. If that plane stays airborne, every drone Ukraine sends will be spotted and shot down before they get within 10 miles. That's where Ghost 1 comes in. 3:30 p.m., Ghost 1 is screaming across the Mediterranean at 540 knots, his F-16 vibrating so violently it feels like the airframe might shed its skin. He's at 30 feet so low the wake from his jet engine is literally carving a white scar into the blue water. This is sea skimming at its most suicidal. By hugging the waves, he's staying below the radar horizon, making himself a ghost to the Russian IL-38N Sea Dragon orbiting 90 miles away. Ghost 1 flips the safety on an AGM-88 HARM. This missile is an electronic wolf. It doesn't need to see the plane, it just sniffs for the radio frequency scent of the Sea Dragon's radar. The moment the Russian radar operator pings the F-16's position, he hasn't found a target, he's signed his own death warrant. Magnum, Ghost 1 growls. The HARM roars off the rail, its rocket motor leaving a white streak against the sky as it accelerates to Mach 2. Inside the Sea Dragon, the Russian crew is mid-sentence laughing about how quiet the shift is when their consoles suddenly erupt into a blinding strobing of white noise. The HARM impacts the sensor spine on top of the aircraft with surgical precision, causing a significant radar outage. In a heartbeat, the Russian fleet's eye in the sky is gouged out. They are now legally blind. But the Russians didn't come to Libya alone. High above diving from the sun at Mach 1.5, a Russian Su-30SM escort pilot catches the flash of the explosion. Contact Lone Viper 6 o'clock, low engaging. Suddenly, Ghost 1's cockpit is no longer a workspace, it's a chamber of horrors. The radar warning receiver emits a steady, terrifying scream, the hard lock tone. A Russian R-77 missile has just leaped from the Su-30's wing and is burning a path straight for Ghost 1's tail. This is the 9G dance we saw at the start. Ghost 1 yanks the stick into his stomach and kicks the rudder hard left. His G-suit inflates like a vice around his legs, trying to force blood back to his brain as 9 Gs of force try to crush his ribs into his spine. His vision begins to tunnel, the edges turning gray as he executes a violent. Ghost 1 is flying like a man possessed, think Top Gun, but without the Hollywood safety net and with a much grittier budget. The R-77 missile, unable to match the F-16's brutal turn rate, overshoots its wing by less than 10 meters, plunging into the Mediterranean and creating a massive geyser of white foam. Ghost 1 doesn't wait to breathe. He dives back toward the deck, his heart hammering against his ribs. He survived the eye and the fighter, but he still has a second, more dangerous job deafening the silent assassin lurking below the improved Kilo-class submarine Starry Oskol. Why hit the sub? Because a Kilo-class sub is the world's best underwater ear. It has a sonar suite so sensitive it can hear a drone's electric motor from 10 miles away. If that sub stays active, the Ghost Drift drones Ukraine is about to launch will be detected and neutralized before they even see the harbor. Using coordinates fed directly from a US P-8 Poseidon orbiting near Sicily, Ghost 1 levels off at 50 feet. He's carrying a Mk-54 lightweight torpedo on a Franken pylon, a custom-built Ukrainian adapter that enables Western technology to communicate with Soviet-era jets. It's a masterclass in military life hacking that most mainstream analysts completely miss. If you're as obsessed with these tactical MacGyver details as we are, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a deep dive into how the underdog is rewriting the rules of war. Ghost 1 is right over the sub's last known periscope ping. Away, he says, releasing the weapon. The Mk-54 splashes into the water and instantly goes active. Its acoustic seeker screaming like a banshee as it locks onto the sub's steel hull. Deep inside the Starry Oskol, the Russian commander's face turns the color of ash as the sonar tech screams, "Torpedo in the water, high speed, 200 meters and closing." The impact isn't designed for a catastrophic hull breach, it's a precision strike intended to neutralize the vessel's ability to hunt. The warhead impacts the stern with surgical accuracy, causing a significant structural compromise to the 7-bladed propeller and the rudder assembly. In an instant, the Starry Oskol is stripped of its propulsion and steering. The lethal predator of the deep is now effectively immobilized, forced to limp away from the combat zone using emergency ballast control. Now here's the masterstroke that almost everyone misses. By neutralizing the sub rather than destroying it, Ukraine didn't just remove a hunter, they created a permanent sonar clutter zone. The impact, combined with the damaged sub's frantic high-power emergency pings, has turned the underwater environment into a chaotic heavy metal concert of noise. Think of it like this: the Russian corvette on the surface is now trying to listen for intruders, but Ukraine just turned the volume to 100%. The corvette's sonar operators are overwhelmed by the acoustic noise of their own disabled submarine. The eye in the sky is blind, the assassin in the deep is neutralized, and the door to Putin's new HQ is now wide open for the maelstrom that's about to drift in. While the sky is still burning from Ghost 1's dogfight, the real hunters are just beginning their long, silent walk to the target. 10 miles off the coast of Tobruk, a nondescript civilian cargo ship, a Trojan horse of the Mediterranean, lowers its ramp. 6 shadows slide into the water, 4 Magura V-7 surface drones, and 2 of Ukraine's newest underwater nightmares, the Subsea Baby. But they aren't racing in with engines screaming. Instead, the operators in Kiev perform a maneuver called Ghost Drift. They cut the electric motors completely. For the next 2 hours, these 500-kilogram warheads become nothing more than expensive logs drifting at a steady 2 knots carried by the natural tidal currents of the Libyan coast. The subsea baby drones are ballasted to neutral buoyancy, hovering just inches off the muddy seabed. They aren't using GPS or Starlink right now. They are running on pure AI-controlled inertial navigation, adjusting their depth to hide in the acoustic shadows of the seafloor. On the surface, the Russian corvette RFS Retivy is in a state of absolute paranoia. Its commander knows the eye in the sky is blind and the submarine escort is crippled. He's not taking any chances. Active sonar to maximum, all Panzer M stations to auto-engage. The corvette begins to scream into the water with its sonar, but remember the heavy metal concert Ghost 1 created. The underwater environment is so saturated with the noise of the damaged Kilo-class sub and the torpedo's after effects that the corvette's sensors are struggling to find a clean signal. It's like trying to find a specific person's whisper in the middle of a stadium riot. Suddenly, a flicker on the radar. The Redivy's Panzer M turret, a beast capable of firing 48 mini-missiles in a single swarm defense mode, slews 180 degrees. The night sky is torn apart by a barrage of missiles and 30mm tracer fire. 2 of the Magura V-7 surface drones are caught in the crossfire. There's a significant thermal event as a missile impacts the first drone, vaporizing it instantly. Back in the Kiev command center, the operator's telemetry screen flashes a violent red. Contact! They've locked onto Drone 3. We're losing telemetry. For a moment, it looks like a total failure. The Russian sonar finally achieves a hard lock on one of the submerged subsea babies. A Russian sailor's finger hovers over the depth charge release. This is the make or break moment of the entire $400 million operation. But here is where the ghost drift pays off. Because the drones are moving at exactly the speed of the current 2 knots, the Russian automated fire control systems make a fatal logical error. The computer's trash filter identifies the slow-moving contacts as marine life or drifting debris. Ironically, the Russians have turned their sonar up so loud that they've become deaf to the quietest guests. It's like someone opening a massive speaker at a party and failing to hear the person sliding through the back window. The Redivy focuses its fire on the remaining surface drones, while the 2 subsea babies slip silently under the heavy steel boom nets at the harbor mouth. They are now inside the perimeter. They are drifting mere meters from the Volga shadow tanker's hull. This is the ultimate test of nerves. If you were the operator in Kyiv watching your drone drift inches from a steel wall while Russian depth charges are exploding in the distance, would you stay in silent mode and trust the physics? Or would you hit the thrusters and gamble on a high-speed strike? Tell me your choice in the comments. Do you drift or do you drive? Because what happens next is the difference between a minor incident and a strategic catastrophe for the Kremlin. The new HQ has no idea that the parasites have already latched on. 4:15 p.m. The Russian corvette Retivy has become a victim of its own success. Its Panzer M turret is glowing red, having depleted over 60% of its missile inventory swatting at Magura drones. Its radar is saturated, a technical way of saying the computer is having a nervous breakdown trying to track too many targets at once. While the Russians are frantically looking down at the water, they've completely forgotten to look at the horizon behind them. This is the split phantom strategy in its most lethal form. Enter Ghost 2. The 2nd Ukrainian F-16 is screaming in from the opposite direction, staying below 50 feet in a stealth approach. Ghost 2 pulls the nose up just enough to clear the harbor's outer pier and releases 2 Storm Shadow cruise missiles. These aren't just bombs. They are $2 million precision scalpels with 1,000-pound warheads. The Storm Shadows impact the Volga shadow tanker, the new HQ, with surgical violence. The first missile punches through the double hull and the second ignites the internal fuel stores. The result is a significant thermal event that turns the Mediterranean afternoon into a scene from a disaster movie. A 200-foot geyser of burning oil and black smoke erupts into the sky, incinerating the command and control equipment instantly. The Russian corvette commander, realizing he's been outplayed, makes a desperate scorched earth move. He launches a Caliber cruise missile in a frantic attempt to counterattack. But Ghost 2 is already pulling a high-G brake, dumping bundles of chaff and flares that light up the sky. The Caliber loses its lock and plunges harmlessly into the sea, while the secondary Storm Shadow finds its way into the Don Shadow, the secondary tanker. Now the harbor is a chain reaction of explosions. But the final most satisfying blow comes from the quietest player in the game. One of the subsea baby drones, having drifted silently through the chaos, finally makes contact with the Volga Shadow's stern. The drone's directional warhead doesn't just explode. It uses a programmable delay to create a water hammer effect. The pressure wave is forced upward against the tanker's hull. Because water is incompressible, 100% of that kinetic energy is hammered into the steel. The tanker's spine literally snaps. The bow of the massive ship groans and begins to point toward the sky as the engineering compartment floods at a rate of thousands of gallons per second. The Russian radio waves are a cacophony of Mayday calls and screaming officers. The new HQ isn't just damaged, it is structurally compromised and sinking into the Libyan mud. Think about the genius of the split Phantom for a second. Ghost 1 disabled the sub to open the door. The Sea Babies drifted in like a virus while the Corvette was distracted. And Ghost 2 delivered the finishing blow while the Russians were still trying to figure out why their sonar was broken. It's like playing a game of chess where Ukraine is 3 moves ahead and the Russian king is already in checkmate before the game even started. Putin's $400 million invincible Mediterranean pivot has just been vaporized. The total bill for Moscow, over $400 million in assets, were neutralized in a single afternoon. But the real cost isn't just the steel, it's the collapse of an entire strategic pivot. First, let's talk about the direct military impact. The Volga Shadow wasn't just a ship, it was the brain of the Mediterranean logistics. By vaporizing the command and control equipment, Ukraine didn't just cause a fire, they caused a systemic blackout. Without that HQ, the remaining Russian ships in the region are like a body without a central nervous system. They are drifting disorganized and vulnerable. Second, the logistical domino effect. This shadow fleet was the secret bank account for Putin's war machine moving oil to cash a check that keeps the tanks rolling. By destroying the Mediterranean hub, Ukraine has effectively cut the artery of the southern supply route. Russia now has to find a new way to move its oil, but in 2026 there are no more safe harbors. So are you satisfied with that level of destruction? If you support the underdog changing the rules of war with $8,000 logs and 9G barrel rolls, smash that like button and subscribe for the next deep dive into how Ukraine is rewriting history. And for the tech geeks in the comments, which was more impressive, the Ghost Drift that bypassed the sonar or the split Phantom coordination that blinded the fleet type Drift or Phantom below. Bye for now.